Has anyone heard of the can't say, won't say problem in market research? We actually heard a little bit about it this morning. The TNS presentation talked about recall bias, like I actually can't recall what I did. And then USAMP talked about dishonesty. I don't want, representation bias. I don't want to admit something that I do. Those are two good examples of can't say and won't say. It actually goes a little bit deeper than that. It's not just that I can't remember what I did on the can't say side of things. It's actually that I don't know why I did what I did. Has anybody heard of System 1 and System 2 processing? Kahneman's stuff, if you want the original source, it's Strack and Deutsch from 2004. This System 1 and System 2 processing is an argument that the vast majority of our thinking is done at a subconscious level. That's System 1. Our System 1 is intuitive, it's associative, it's emotional, it's fast. And our System 2, which is where we sort of live in our conscious minds, is slow and it's deliberate and it's propositional. It makes if-then statements and tries to come up with judgments. Many social psychologists estimate that up to 95% of all of our thought is System 1, meaning that most of what we're thinking and processing is happening below our level of conscious awareness. And in market research, in the last 20 years, we've made some really good advances in studying System 1 processing, particularly in quantitative ways. When we moved into online research and started doing choice-based conjoint at scale, we had huge advances in our insights because we were deriving insight on what was important by what people were doing, the trade-offs they were making, instead of having them tell us through explicit questions what was important to them. Similarly, in recent years, we've made some advances with neuroscience where we can actually measure the neural reaction to stimulus or the physiological reaction, sweating in your hands and your heart rate, etc. Here's an example of how neuro and other implicit techniques have an advantage. In this particular study, it was about smoking. They wanted to know which campaign was going to be the most successful. So they presented these three campaigns and they asked self-report rankings of which one was going to be most successful. And then they also put people into an fMRI tube and actually studied their brain activity while they were watching the ads. And what they found was, if I go back one here, was that the neural data was much more closely aligned with actual population call volume of the 1-800-QUICK-NOW line than the self-report rankings were. And so this was published in Psych Science as a big breakthrough about how neuro techniques can get you true insight that self-report techniques may not be able to get you. But my question is, do we need to put people inside an fMRI tube in order to get this kind of implicit insight? And you can bet my answer is no. So implicit technology on the neurophysio side has some business application issues. First of all, neuro and physio techniques lack the ability to detect discrete emotions. They can give you positive approach and avoidance behavior, but they can't tell you the nature of that emotion itself. They're expensive and they're slow. And often they suffer from non-representativeness. You can conduct implicit research online and now on mobile devices, which solves for these issues. Online implicit research technology solutions measure up to 26 or more, depending on your taxonomy. They're cost-effective and they're fast. And they're globally scalable. So when I say implicit research technology, does anybody know what I'm talking about? Smattering. Okay. So I'm going to start with an illustration of the Stroop effect. Anybody heard of the Stroop effect? Maybe. All right, say out loud the color that this word is printed in. It's going to appear in the upper right-hand side of this slide. The color that the word is printed in. Blue. That's pretty easy, right? Now do the same thing. Say the color that the word is printed in. Oh, yeah. It's harder, right? That's 1935. It's the Stroop effect, and it's basically an illustration of cognitive dissonance. The stimulus is inconsistent with the response that you're asked to make. That really, from 1935, is the foundation of all current implicit association testing. In 1995, the social psychologists got into this business because they were studying stereotypes and they wanted to know how to measure something that people had, biases towards group, without asking them explicitly. And probably the most famous implicit test is the implicit association test, and that came out in 1998 by Greenwald and colleagues. In this task, it's actually pretty easy. There's two categories on the screen, and they switch these pairings. In one condition, black faces and a positive word are paired, and in the other category, it's white faces and a negative word. And what happens in this task is a face appears on the screen, and if it's black, you hit one key on your keyboard, and if it's white, you hit the other key on your keyboard. And they time you to see how long it takes you to make that judgment. Well, if you have a negative bias towards a certain racial group, it actually takes you longer to make judgments, let's say on black faces, when the categories are paired between black faces and positive words. You follow me there? There's, just like the Stroop effect, a dissonance between what we're asking you to do and your automatic reaction. That automaticity is system one processing. Well, an explosion of research came out in the in-between years, in 1998 to 1997. Consumer studies started to emerge because we figured this actually can apply to any can't say, won't say problem, not just racial stereotypes. It's based on neural networks. We're going to show you how. And now in 2013, it's not just online, it's on mobile devices, which gives us great data accessed wherever consumers may be. So I went back to the fMRI tube. One of the things that we do is we have a neural lab at Sentient, and we use that lab to marry neurophysiological techniques with online implicit techniques to see if we get the same or divergent insight. And in the study that we published last year, we found that the insight that you gain from measuring EEG on self-identification with a brand is highly correlated with the insight that you get using online implicit research technology of self-identification with brands. That's really important from a practical business application perspective, because if I can get the same insight, but I can do it faster, cheaper, with representative samples, globally scaled, we obviously have a winner from a methodological perspective. So how do we do it for Frito? And Steve was talking about what the Doritos brand stands for. And this image, again, is, if you like this kind of reference, is from Gronsky and Bodenhausen, 2006. This is an image of a neural network. Essentially, it is the degree of association that is matched between a concept and your brand when we apply it to brands. So Doritos implicitly stands for bold, energetic. It may stand for exciting. And it may stand for rebellious. You saw some of the imagery. The question was, does Taco Bell intersect on these same dimensions at a neural network level, at an implicit level? So we're going to answer that question, but we can't just be online. For this target age group, we also have to be mobile. For this data, 15% of all internet traffic is mobile. I'm sure you have your own stats on this. 37% of time consuming digital is on mobile. And in 2015, 76% of all 18 to 34-year-old access to the internet will be through mobile. And that's our target audience. So if I'm just online, I obviously can't do this on phone, voice to voice. I can't do it just online. I need to be online, and I also need to be mobile. And I also need to be able to detect what device the participant is using to interact with my study. So that's what the technology does. It determines whether you're on laptop or desktop or tablet or smartphone, and it feeds you the right UI depending on what device you're on. So this gives us access to anyone who has internet access to their mobile device. We're going to do a demo next. There's a few things in this technology that are not apparent on the face of it that I want to make sure that you're aware of. First of all, we use a behavioral priming exercise, and this is based on behavioral economics. You're going to see a zoom that's happening in this technology. That increases the salience of the prime as it comes towards you and heightens your emotional reaction. In addition, we're giving performance feedback. There's two key things in this kind of exercise. There's speed and there's accuracy. And what we found in our lab is that when you actually give people real-time feedback on whether they're accurate and how fast they are, their implicit data becomes more accurate. You're reducing the noise. You're isolating the implicit or subconscious response. Also, on mobile devices, we use the natural approach and avoidance behavioral interaction, which is swiping away from you if you don't like something, and swiping towards you if you do. And then finally, you won't see this, but we do so much work in the choice literature. 20 years of work in the choice literature has shown us that hierarchical Bayesian estimation of choice utilities gives you better data. We take that same insight and we apply it to subconscious associations. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes here. It's cloud-based and it's distributed processing on the HB estimations.